forgot, it was 17th.
I think that's a new blouse. A new blouse.
17th, yes.
Or is it from college?
I think our last one was on, that was right. I'd like to call the September 5th, 2008 Board of Selectmen's meeting to order at 6:30. Ms. Morrow, do you have a need for non-public?
Yes, for legal.
And I think I also had a request from Mr. Senecal to talk about negotiations.
Terrific.
So those will be our two items. Next item on the agenda is to do the minutes of August 15th. Does any selectman have any changes, additions? Hearing none, can I have a motion to accept as written?
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, we have one abstention. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing. It's the Whitten Neck Bridge jumping prohibited, and I'll read the public notice. It says the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, September 5th, 2018 at 6:35 p.m. at Wolfeboro Town Hall, Grade Hall, 84 South Main Street, Wolfeboro, New Hampshire, for the purpose of hearing public comments on the proposed amendment to the Code of Wolfeboro, Chapter 112, entitled Peace and Good Order, to replace 112-3 with the following. No person, let's move this back a bit, no person shall bathe in said area from the Causeway Bridge on Whitten Neck or dive off said docks or said bridge. Further, no person shall jump, divide, slide, enter the channel by any means from the channel area. The channel area shall be defined as the area within 10 feet in any direction from said bridge, abutment, support, foundation. Swimming or bathing in or jumping or diving into the channeled area is prohibited. Any entrance into the water is prohibited by jumping, diving, falling, or otherwise entering the water within the channel from any part of the bridge. Any violations of this ordinance shall be violation level offense and shall be punishable by fines or other criminal or administrative actions as followed. First offense, $100. Second offense, $200. Third and subsequent offenses, $500. The third or any subsequent offense shall also subject the offending party to a criminal charge. Fines may be imposed on any person 12 years and older or upon a parent, legal guardian, or supervising adult of a minor of any age. This ordinance may be enforced by any sworn peace officer in the state of New Hampshire. And then it reads, if there is anyone with a disability needing any modification or auxiliary aid to access the meeting, please notify Ann Marble. And it was posted in the town hall, the library. It was posted on the town website. Those were all on August 17th. And it was in the Granite State on August 16th, 2018. Do you want to present it, or would you like me to bring the chief up?
Hi, thank you. I'm Dean Rondeau, Wolfeboro Chief of Police. So the town manager and I crafted that. This was to deal with the issue that we're having, a systemic issue, actually, down at the Whitten Neck Bridge area in that channel in between the access way to the two bodies of water. The reason it seems a little harsh, if you will, and heavy-handed is because, one, it's been a systemic issue. It's been occurring for quite some time, and last year there was a Wolfeboro citizen who was gravely injured when a number of youths decided to jump off the bridge, part of playing a game or a challenge, and they jumped in front of the boat, and then she ended up striking her head on the bridge abutment and becoming seriously and permanently impaired as a result of that incident. Those culprits haven't been caught yet. So that's the reason. We have now somebody that's been gravely injured. That injury is permanent, and we want to curtail this behavior. Subject to your questions, that's all I have.
Okay, I'll open up the hearing to anybody in the audience who would like to ask a question or make a statement about this ordinance change. Seeing none and hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Board members, does anybody have any questions on the ordinance or any questions for the chief? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
I'll move that we adopt this new ordinance on Chapter 112, entitled Peace and Good Order.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All righty, we'll move on. Next item is the bulk vote. It's a weekly manifest. It's a gift of $500 to Last Night, which is on December 31st. It's part of the Economic Development Committee's Special Event Committee. There is a yield tax. There are a couple of intent to cut. There's application for reimbursement to the town in which federal state forest land is situated in 2018 that needs our signature. Approval of a solar energy system exemption, a veterans credit. Does anybody have a need to remove any of those? Hearing none, can I have a motion to accept the bulk vote?
I move that we accept the bulk vote, items A through G.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All righty. Now on to number 5, new business. This is a 2018 elderly exemption for tax map 203, lot 13. The taxpayer is requesting acceptance of a late application under accident, mistake, and misfortune provision. And we have the application, we have a notice from our assessor. Generally, I don't give recommendations for decisions which are up to the Board of Selectmen. This property owner would have qualified for the elderly exemption had he filled out the necessary paperwork timely. You may accept or grant this late 2018 application if you choose. The taxpayer is over 80 years old. So does any selectman have any comment or questions about this? I believe that we should grant it.
I agree with you on that, too. I mean, it's, obviously made a mistake by missing the deadline and stuff, and he definitely qualifies, so I'd be inclined to grant this.
Would you like to make that a motion?
I will make that a motion that we grant the elderly exemption for tax map 203, lot 13.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the Board of Tax and Land Appeal proposed settlement, tax map 228-005. This is an agreement that our assessor has worked out with the owner of the property. There are 2 years. It's for the 2016-2017 year. Does any board members have any comments or questions on this? Hearing none, could I have a motion?
Make a motion that we approve the settlement with BTLA for tax map 228-005. for 2016 and 2017.
Second.
Okay, I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, that carries. The next item on the agenda is an appointment of an alternate member to the Libby Library Board of Trustees, Thomas Medan. Is there anybody here who would like to speak to this?
No, I would like to say that I spoke with Cindy Scott today, and due to the late nature, she didn't have anyone who could appear. She said that he has previously served as on the library board, and so she would highly recommend his appointment.
Okay. Does any member of the board have any concerns or questions? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
I'll move to approve Thomas Madden as an alternate member of the Library Board of Trustees.
Second.
Okay, I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes. Next item on the agenda is our monthly expenditure and revenue report, and we have our new finance director, Deb Zebkar, present this to us.
Hello. Deb Zabkar, Finance Director. I hope y'all had a chance to look at the report for July that I sent out. So by the end of July, I would expect us to be at about 58% through the budget, and the overall expended to date is roughly 58%, at least through the end of July. With the general fund being at about 60%, water being at 68%, electric being at 51%, sewer being at 75%, and pop whaling being at 62%. Per the sort of the normal format here, I added some pages of notes for budgets that are above that 58% mark and what I think is causing that. But overall, I think we're doing pretty good. We're on target, so I'm open to questions if you have any.
I want to say to the board, I had a conversation with Becky and Debbie today. I have concerns about the legal budget, and they're going to do an analysis for us for the next time we look at it. And I want to thank them for their time. I had more questions, and they've answered them for me. So, does any other board member have any question? Paul?
I have not had a chance to meet with Deb. When this document came out, it was pretty clear that finance organization and our town manager are in the middle of a whole bunch of other stuff, so I chose not to take their time. I do have some questions about energy. Okay. I do have some questions about the construction observation process. Okay. And I do, energy particularly, this building, all buildings. And I'd like to just get a sense of where you think, and this may be for our next meeting, where you think we're going to finish in total. And I just have a rhetorical question. When do we start looking for ways to start saving money as opposed to simply, and it's not just you, I've seen this before, and as opposed to just simply, well, we're 58% of where we should be. When do we start looking for ways to kind of tighten it up so that we can deliver something a little different than an on-budget, maybe an under-budget performance? Be something I'd be keen to understand. Okay. I'll see you personally, and then maybe next time you can brief us all on those bigger questions.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other comments or concerns or questions?
While Deb is still here, I would like to say that we've spent a great deal of time focusing on the finances and use of the software that we have. We have MuniSmart, and we spend a great deal of money on that software. And in thinking about that, it's supposed to make our lives easier. And when I find that we're tracking certain expenses in Excel software as opposed to using the software and its reconciliation features to their fullest function, I think we need to take a hard look at that and make some improvements. So with that said, I reached out to a professor at Southern New Hampshire University and located a company that specializes in MuniSmart who can assist us on an hourly basis. They're going to come in on Thursday of this week, and hopefully, if you are so inclined, you could spare me a few dollars so that we could get that looked at. We chatted today about what might be available, and there is some discretionary funding under the selectmen's line item. If we could start with a $3,000 purchase order, that would help us get things under control, like the check reconciliation feature, which has not been being used. We have been manually reconciling the checkbook, which is not best practice. And so I'd like to move from here to best practice.
That makes sense to me. What we're talking about, we have a miscellaneous budget item, and there is $3,618.27. It seems to me that it makes sense for us to get somebody in here and to use the program to its fullest. And I think we'll be able to keep better track of some things. So I don't know if anybody else has any comments on it. Paul?
I have a question. You mentioned that the checkbook has been manually reconciled. I mean, has this created an audit issue?
Well, it means that instead of clicking a button and having the majority of the checks reconciled, it takes approximately 14 hours to reconcile the checkbook. And I know moving forward, that's definitely not a best practice.
Well, if we can save 14 hours, we should do that. But my question is this manual set of spreadsheet activities creating an issue when it comes to closing the books at the end of the year and rendering an opinion that so it's a time issue. We're just consuming a bunch of times filling out Excel spreadsheets when we could be using a system we've already bought, we paid for, where we're supposed to be using. So not only is it an investment in getting a professor or some academic to come in here and help you do this, it's a statement to the departments, folks who use the system, to kind of wean yourself off of Microsoft and get yourself onto MuniSmart. Is that kind of the message? So there's a management issue in here too, and you're going to deal with that side of it?
So thankfully, our treasurer is meticulous. So in terms of control measures, we're in a great place because he's been doing that. But we need to have a parallel. We need to reconcile with him monthly, and that's several months behind.
The good news is we're not creating any audit problems. We haven't. Better news is we're going to save some time. We've already purchased the system. We just got to wean ourselves of a habit of using an old crutch. And you think a couple $1,000 of advice is going to help us do that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Does any other member of the board have any questions or concerns? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Do you need a motion on that?
No, we just, well, we could. Let's do that.
Okay, I'll move that we appropriate the requested approximately $3,000 for the computer system upgrade.
Second.
Okay, we're talking about consulting.
The consulting for the...
Yeah,
I'll second what he just said.
okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next item on the agenda, media policy. And that does go over to you.
Yes.
And before you do that, let me hand out to the board. I received and you received a email from Alyssa Paquette, who is our representative from the Granite. And I want to make sure everybody gets that. And Becky, you can take it from here.
Great. So let me start by saying that in the democratic process, there's probably 4 arms. There's judicial, legislative, there is executive, and then there's the press. And the press plays a very important function in what we all do. It's transparency, it's light of day, it's open and fair proceedings in the public, and it's very important to me. That said, we have to understand that employees have a First Amendment right to speak on any topic that they wish. And I'm a true constitutionalist. I will never inhibit their ability to speak. And, you know, even whistleblowing has a place in government, so that's important as well. What we do need to do is to clarify for the employees that when they're expressing a personal opinion, they have to preface whatever they say by saying, this is my personal opinion, and it may not be held by the Board of Selectmen, Budget Committee, or whatever representative body we're talking about. So we can't have any misunderstanding, you know, that somebody might stand up and say, I want this, and the Board of Selectmen agrees with me. Perhaps they haven't checked in prior to making a statement such as that. So the media policy is meant to clarify that for employees. It will become part of the employee handbook, and it will be the type of thing that we'll talk about at department head meetings. It's not meant to curb people's access to the media so much as to clarify the distinction between personal opinion and collective opinion of a body or a board.
Alyssa Paquette, who's in the audience, made a statement that this focuses narrowly on, I'm paraphrasing her, people that aren't used to talking to the media, We have someone like Alyssa or Tom Beeler, who's represented the Granite State News for many, many, many years. We have WASR, we have the Union Leader, and New Hampshire Public TV, and I think someone with accredited media or media accreditation, such as Alyssa, can probably write more or less what she wants using her good judgment. Now, if that failed, we could change that, but I don't think it ever has. So we don't want to restrict. We don't want to restrict a construction site person from talking to talking to Alyssa like what's happening with the construction site, because I think Alyssa or Tom Beeler can figure out what's good for the town, what isn't, and what makes sense. And so I think that the codicil that she has proposed can be worked into the agreement somehow. Is that good?
Does any other board member have any comments or questions? I have one, and it seems to me as when we were going down and we are on page 3, and we get to the new releases will also be posted on the town website. That seems to be talking about one thing. Then we start heading off into communication with legal counsel. And I think that should be on either another piece of paper or under another topic. I don't think it is. I think it's dealing with something different than the first part of the response on how we respond to the media. My understanding also is that as a member of the Board of Selectmen, I can speak as a member of the board, not giving the board's full opinion, but it's my opinion. My feeling is I have the right to clarify if somebody says, I saw you on TV, is this what it was saying, to clarify? My reading of this is if we were making a statement for the town or for the board as a whole. Am I correct on those?
Right, similar to a public information officer. We've been having that conversation as part of the emergency management discussions, because we would have to separate what the PIO might want for people to do versus what personal opinion would be.
Also, I think historically, having probably read the Granite State News every word more or less, if Alyssa or some media person, WMUR or something, isn't going to come up to me or to Paul O'Brien and say, I understand that Wolfeboro is being sued, what is your view of that? We automatically say, we don't discuss that. Or what I hear the police department or the fire department has a problem. We've never discussed that to the media, and I think that just makes common sense that what we're doing is the right thing.
And I think information, a public information statement, and I agree, should go through the town manager or be brought to the Board of Selectmen. I think that's the other thing we're getting at here. Anybody else on the board have any comments about this? I would like it to, for us to do some more work on it. I also would like that divided out there. It makes sense that that should come out. And also, we're talking about guidelines for appointed officials and maybe put bullets in that to separate that. And the only thing is that we made no comment about elected officials in terms if we're going to deal with contacting legal counsel and some of that, we probably would want to put that in under a legal counsel section.
So elected officials have almost no protective rights. They have free speech to the nth degree.
But that's where you, after this is, that at least the board's policy has been that one member of the Board of Selectmen cannot call up town council. That's where I'm getting at.
I got it, okay.
And that either has to go through you or the Board of Selectmen. It's kind of backing like one member of the Board of Selectmen can't act on his own.
Yes, okay.
That's
Good feedback.
I didn't see that in there. Does anybody else see anything?
I think there's, if I could, I think there's two conversations here. One is clarity about communicating with the public. And I agree with the observation that an elected person is always on the record. You just kind of do that. They're on the record. The second conversation is what can an elected person do? And you have to separate those. You know, can they call lawyers? Can they call special meetings? I think that's important. And I also think it's important that we clarify that, and to use Mr. Bauer's example, if somebody were to come and speak with one of our, frontline crew members and say, "Hey, what's going on in Wolfeboro? I understand there's big problems." That person has neither the insight nor the authorization to speak on those things because they're not clued in. It's not a question of they're just not clued in. So I think it's important in this document that we clarify, who can speak, and we clarify who can do what and under what conditions. And I think that would be helpful. And I think it might alleviate or mitigate some of the concerns raised by our beloved members of the press.
Anybody else have any comments or concerns? So you'll come back with a second draft for us?
Yes.
That we can look at?
Eliminates whispering.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the public safety building and possible need for further study. In August, the board was presented with a feasibility study on whether the public safety building would fit on the existing lot. That's the only thing the study did, and gave us an amount of square feet the different departments needed. The whole square footage needed by the police and fire is 29,400 feet. Common space is 2,768 square feet. Police needs 8,635 square feet. Fire department needs 15,584 square feet. And building support is 2,342 feet. That makes up that 29,400. And the cost came in at $11,899. And what I was wondering whether members of the board would like to do a feasibility study to look at maybe another way. Could we divide up the two departments? Is there, can we meet those needs in another manner for less cost? I think if we are going to go out and ask the public for about $12 million, we better have looked at more than one option. And with this, I know that there are members of the board who have done some thinking on that. This project is supposed to be scheduled for 2022. And so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dave Senical. He was the Board of Selectmen's representative to that building committee, and I know you've had some thoughts, and let's kind of hash it out as a board.
Yeah, I think LaValle did exactly what they were asked to do as far as the report that we got from them. I think you pointed out the need for the police department in particular to have a lot more space for them to work. when we got the numbers back between 11 and 12 billion dollars, I think some of us were just a little taken back at that price. But after we went through the numbers with them, it was showing us that we're basically building a new building up there for that amount of money. We picked, there were 3 options. We picked number 3, I believe it was. And it was a very nice plan. And it works for everybody. Everybody had the space they needed. But since we got that number, myself in particular and a couple of others think that we need some further study on this. And mainly, I think some of us think that it might be better to possibly move the police department to another location, either a new building or renovate a building we own, namely the electric light building down on Lena Street, which was one of the options. We had thought about the property that Mr. Walgreen owns on Lena Street, but we understand that's been sold. We also know that at this point, Snell Auto Parts has closed that store and may be selling that building. So some of us that have talked about it feel that we need to look at some of those buildings or even some other building that could house, say, just the police department. I've talked to the chief about it. He doesn't seem to object too much, that they have to be with the fire department. Would be nice to have everything together, but the 11 to 12 million dollars, we may not be able to do that. So, with that being said, I think that we need to have the town manager possibly go out and talk to LaValle again, possibly, because they have been worked with us very well on the fire police station and the library. So I think that they might be somebody that we would like to talk to, or at least get some opinions from them as to what they might be able to do for us. Because I think that after $4 million here, $5 million at the library, people are not going to be too receptive to $12 million for a new police fire station. My opinion, I think it would be a difficult sell. So with that being said, I think that, I guess I would just like some direction from the board to maybe work with Becky and maybe talk to them and see what we can get for information and numbers to do a study on possibly, what's the best word, recycle some of the buildings or property we have.
Look at different configurations and all.
See if there are some alternatives that we can come up with, working with the chiefs, obviously. We wouldn't keep them out in the dark too long.
And I see us, and part of the reason why I brought it up now, I see we have 2 ways of doing it. We do have a capital reserve account,
Yep.
which we could use, and we're also in the 2019 budget.
Yep.
So I figured we better kind of come to some kind of an idea which way we want to go at this time. I'm going to start down with Paul and come down and see what other people feel or have any other ideas. Paul?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think, so my reaction when I saw the number is it was eye-popping, and my first question when I look at these kinds of configurations and numbers is, to ask the question, the derivative question, what drove those numbers? What caused those? So I think it would be good with the town manager to, and the chiefs, to crawl around in the assumptions that drove the capacity needs. We may find that, they're exact, we may all agree and said, perfect, we have enough, we're going to grow, we have enough capacity, and boom, that's it. But I think that's a necessary and useful exercise. I have seen some work that Mr. Senecal provided to me, which documented some of that. But I think kind of pushing around at those numbers would be helpful. Clearly, there's no question we have construction deficiencies in that building, so, something's got to get fixed. It's not a question of do nothing. It is broke, and it does need a fix. But the question then is, for how much? Can we keep you characters together? Do you need to be together? Is that the best place? Is that the best place to locate these things? And so I think it was good that we did the first tranche. Now it's time to kind of get, deep into the guts of this and just crawl around on the assumptions, look at what it tells us, and then figure out what we can do to have a good placement of these very important resources in our town.
Brad?
Yeah, I have to.
Can I just add something to that?
Sure, absolutely.
The information I gave Paul was from LaValle when they did the study of how many square feet does the police need for this action, for that action, for that action, and the same with the fire department. So we can take those numbers that we all agreed upon early on and say, okay, police department needs 10,000 square feet of space. Where can we get that?
Right.
In a different location. That includes the dispatch as well. And then fire department needs so many square feet. Where can we get that? Where can we put that? Or where will it fit? Does it mean, for whatever reasons, again, we need to sort that out and say, okay, they need so many square feet and so many. That was what came out of that study that was very important to us to look at, so that we now know professionally, not saying you guys aren't professional, but these guys take those space needs and put them together. We have that now. We know what we need for space. Now we need to know where to put it. So I think that's the direction we need to go next. There's probably all kinds of different options. If we know we need 9,000 or 10,000 square feet for the police department, then we go look for that kind of space to utilize. Or maybe we will end up with everything being there. I don't know. I don't think, to me it's not feasible for that kind of money.
Brad?
Yeah, I think actually that's a great point you just brought up, Dave, that the study that we've had done so far provided a lot of good information to us to what our needs are. We can build off that. I do agree. I think the $11 or $12 million would be a very hard sell in the town here. And I think we really need to look at all of our options, see what's out there, whether we do, like Dave said, whether we split the departments up into 2 locations or end up in 1 location still. But if we don't do our due diligence, I think it'd be a very difficult to present it to the voters without all the information available to them and all the different options. So I'm definitely in favor of going out with a feasibility study. I think personally, in my opinion, the way to approach it would be with our budget season coming up. I would almost like to see us put that into a warrant article and not necessarily tap into the capital reserve that we already have going for this. And so we can add to that again this coming year and keep that building up for us. So would be my personal opinion on how to approach it. So.
Dave?
Yesterday, Pat Waterman, who we all love and like, asked me, why don't we buy the mansion on the corner by the police department? And 2 other people have asked me that, and so I decided to check on it. They're asking, $600,000 or something. It's been retrofitted to a very comfortable interior with all modern facilities. So another person said, well, wouldn't it be good for executive offices for the fire chief, the police chief, or something? But that way we get to control the whole block, which we can't do if it turns into a pizza stand or something. So I suggested, and to Pat and the others, I said, this is new to me. The selectmen, it's something that the taxpayers would have to review. If it's something interesting, I would probably suggest it be run by the police department, the fire department, and the town manager, and see if it has any traction. And if it does, explore it, and if it doesn't, then don't think about it anymore.
Yeah, well, I think that that's where I'm kind of going, is to look at all possible sites and then come down and investigate it. We should have looked at 2 or 3 options and then come to the best one. And if putting it at 12 million where we have the first study, I'm fine with it. I think we've learned that from the town hall. It took us many shots. We started at 6.5 million and we finally got it done at 4 million. The library started at 8 million and came back to 5 million after looking at 3, 4, 5 different options of how you could do it. And I think we do that due diligence. We can then sell it to the taxpayer saying, we looked at all these options and based on the square footage needed, the cost, having this makes sense, this is why we're doing it. And I think our shots of getting something passed are far greater than if we run with one thing. I think I would like to get to the board. You had given Paul some of those square footage figures. It would be nice if for all of us on the board to have that. So I hear Brad saying not use a capital reserve account. He was talking about a warrant article. I was wondering whether we do it a capital outlay in the operating budget. Can you see if you can get us some kind of a cost figure for that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was suggesting, that we get a cost and plug it into the budget.
To the regular budget. Will that work for you, Brad? Is that where the majority of us, I hate to use the capital reserve account also. All right, so does that give you enough direction, Becky?
Yes, it does.
Is there anything else any board members want to do on this? We'll move forward and get that going. All right. The next item on the agenda is a request to lay out a road. Oh, yes. Absolutely, come on up, sorry.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Dean Rondo, Wolfeboro Chief of Police. First of all, I just want to commend Dave Seneca. I think it's very smart and very wise to look at other options. I think it's really critically important that we do that. That's number one. Number two, relative to Selectman O'Brien, a little bit about what drove the numbers, and I just want there to be truth in advertising, so to speak. The $12 million price tag, or $11 million and change price tag, was reflective of the fact that it's going to be in 2022, and there's about a 5% inflationary cost figure in that. If we were to do this project tomorrow, for example, if we were ready to execute tomorrow, it'd be about $9.1 million. So that's where some of that money is coming from. That's number one. Number two, though I'm not authorized to speak for the fire department, I am smart enough and been in public safety long enough to know that they have some unique requirements, as do we. So, for example, a little bit, sir, what drives the train here is that I have needs for secure holding facilities, temporary as they may be, that need to meet federal standards. I need certain standards. I have to meet certain standards for holding juveniles. Okay, the two spaces may not be the same by federal law, by state law. So there are things along those lines that drive the cost up because they're unique, right? This is not like we're building a home, for example. And I think this is what a lot of people really have to realize. This isn't just going to be 4 walls, right, a box and a roof on it, right? We have to construct it with these things in mind. And I think that's what the architects really honed in on. And LaValle did a really, really nice job. And I just want to comment about that because they really know their business. Sallyport, for another example, right? I need a secure place to bring prisoners. When we arrest somebody, that area has to be secure. So these things drive up the cost. All right, so it's not the same thing as building a house or a Dunkin' Donuts or McDonald's, and even those buildings have unique requirements, and that's the same thing. The other thing is when we talk about breaking apart, if you will, the police department and fire department, and hear it from me. We love our fire department brothers. We love our EMS brothers and sisters that are with us, and we feel that there's a synergy there, and that's really, really important. There's some shared common space. So when we talk about Selectman Seneca, when we talk about breaking apart the police department for 10,000 square feet, remember that some of that shared space isn't going to go away. So when we're really talking about 10,000 square feet, just make sure that we're talking about, we have to incorporate some of that shared space, right? Because we're sharing, for example, the lobby area, and we're sharing some of the latrine facilities and some of the locker room facilities and so forth and so on. So that is going to be very important as well. So 10,000 square feet may actually be more like 12 or 13,000. But I think it's important to look at all the options. Absolutely. I commend the board for doing that, sir. I commend you. That is insightful. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Just quickly, thank you. Tom Zotti, Deputy Chief of Fire Rescue. And I just want to go on the record as concurring with what Chief Rondo said, and essentially concurring with what you folks have been saying tonight. We certainly support performing some due diligence and looking at options, that any reasonable option that may be out there. If we end up in essentially the same place, so be it. If there's what turns out to be a better option, that's fine too. Stepping aside for a moment and speaking as a resident and a taxpayer, I think we owe it to them to at least study some of the other options, and if something workable comes up, then so be it. I do want to concur again with what Chief Rondo said, is that we do gain some efficiencies, space-wise and so forth, by being together. And as long as we keep that square footage need in mind as we go forward, we will certainly provide whatever information is asked of us study-wise to support moving forward. And just one thing, it came up in passing, and we'd like to make sure it's understood. There was a reference to the study showing the fire rescue looking at approximately 15,000 square feet. And that's accurate. However, we need to sometimes point out most of that is floor space for the apparatus. It's not all office space and that kind of thing. But having said that, again, I think we certainly support moving forward with looking at alternatives and spending the time to whittle away until we get to the best one. Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, any other comments from anybody here? Got it?
Hi, my name is Fern Carey. I'm just a local resident. I wasn't actually here for this, but since it's come up and it got my mind going, I thought I would mention that Farmington just last year built a 19,000 square foot property that does the police, the fire, and the ambulance, and that cost was $2.36 million. They used insulated concrete forms, and they used Groen Builders, Groen Construction. So I didn't know if perhaps that might be something to look into.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, anything else? Seeing none, next item is a request to lay out a road. We have Mr. Ford here to fill us in on this.
Hello, Dave Ford, Public Works Director. Yes, we've had a group of property owners came to me, started asking what it would take to become a town road, and I kind of gave them the same discussion that we did for Stonehenge and then for the Westwood Drive. So I did go out and take a look at it and did kind of my windshield survey to kind of give them an idea. This is, a lot of money, and if you're really serious, the first thing we got to do is talk to the selectmen and figure out where to go. So I looked at and everyone is familiar with the property we're talking about. Probably should, and you have maps of that showing it's off of Beach Pond Road.
No, we don't have any maps.
You don't have maps?
I don't have a map.
We're on the internet, by the way.
They might be.
Thank you, Dave.
So it was a subdivision that was approved in 1987 and was built and finished in 1989. I had a letter in the file. We looked up with Matt today in the planning board file where Kurt Pike approved it, released a bond saying the road was built in accordance with the town standards. The layout, we said 25 lots. It looks like almost all the lots are built on. There's a couple of vacant lots. One looks like it might be an access down to Sergeant's Pond. The road it's a little complicated because of its geometry. There's 3 dead ends, and that's a real problem. Anyone plows knows that takes extra time, and usually, no matter, even though they're built, and I haven't verified, but it does look like they're built to the town standards in terms of the cul-de-sacs. So there's concern there in terms of plowing. The road itself is failed after these many years. The pavement's broke up. It doesn't look too bad. There's a few rocks heaving up. So it does look like it needs to be ground up. We'd have to add some gravel. The ditches have to be cleaned out. There may be some wetlands there, maybe minimal, but all the culverts probably have to be replaced. So again, I did a rough estimate, and I also put money in for engineering and permitting, like we did with Westwood Drive. So I came up with the numbers, and you do have the copy of the cost estimate. It's pretty significant, but there are some issues, I guess, and that's what we probably should talk about before we move forward with this. And in the past, the 2 projects we've done, Stonehenge was a relatively simple dead-end road. Wasn't a lot of work there. Westwood Drive was actually a U-shaped road, and we didn't think it was going to be that much, but we had to add gravel, so we raised the road 6 inches, which then we had to raise the shoulders and build up the side slopes. So it's taken a little longer, but most of it's our manpower, and as a result, the cost that we've done for those 2 projects, really we didn't charge for manpower and our timing. Basically, it was out-of-pocket expenses, which is the bulk of the cost. The gravel, all the pipes and drainage that was put in, all the paving, all the engineering, that was all direct cost that does get passed on. But going forward, I think we realized this year we've hit a wall with regards to how many projects that are coming this year, and with the backlog and with the complications. So I'd like to maybe suggest we might want to think a little bit about this, because this could be the beginning. As we all know, we have over 66 miles, probably 67 miles of town-owned roads, and there's about that many private roads in town. And we have a lot of projects that were approved in the 80s and 90s that are now being built out like this one. Most of them, a lot of houses are here. So I think we're going to see maybe a continuation of this, and we really should look at the impacts, and because there's the impacts of building the road, and then the impacts of maintaining the road. And clearly, this one is going to be much harder to plow than, say, for instance, Westwood Drive. It's about the same amount of lots, but that's a nice U-shaped road. Go in, come back out, nice, easy for plowing. This one here, you have 3 dead ends with the cul-de-sacs, and you have a little bit of geometry there, some of the areas. So it'll probably take another half hour, and at some point, what I made in the first 2 roads, I said, well, each of those was going to add another 10 minutes to 15 minutes. Well, now this one's going to add a half hour. So it's now going to start having an impact on the quality of our existing services, and at some point we're going to have to look at adding another plow driver to keep the level of service where people expect it. So that's something we have to think about. In addition, trying to quantify the operation and maintenance costs. Well, we put down so many tons of sand and salt per mile of road. We would probably, so that's going to cost a little bit more here. We have some more roadside mowing we've got to do. So there is a cost that's associated with these. This is now the 3rd one in the last 5 or 6 years, and I just don't want to, maybe we should have some general discussion, and we really don't have a formal policy on that. One of the things Becky and I discussed was in the past we've had Mark Puffer kind of lay out the procedure for holding the public hearing and the RSAs that are applicable. This one here is a little more complicated, and I really think we might want to look at it, because we have Ferber Lane, which is also a right-of-way going straight ahead, and the proposal is just to take the first section of Ferber Lane, which is only about 200 feet, 215 feet, and then there's Ronald Road, which is 1,940 feet, which is the long straight piece, and at the end you have Haiti Lane, which has cul-de-sacs on either end, and that's 1,000 feet there. And then you have Junebug, which goes up a hill and kind of plateaus, and a nice little cul-de-sac there. It's about 480 feet, so we're looking at a total of 3,635 feet. So this would be the biggest road we'd be taking, and it's going to take some time. So instead of us, like tonight we had the discussion, so I want to have some general discussion, and whether we should set a public hearing date, or should we maybe think about a policy and how we're going to impact, and then also think about, should we be going with Dave Ford's estimates here, which is assuming the town is going to be doing the construction and the project management.
Well, I have a couple of them. First of all, we need to verify whether this road is to town standards. You were saying you thought it was, but
We had a letter from Kurt Pike. So that's in the file, back in 1989.
they meet today's standards?
No.
Okay, but that you added that into the cost. They're going to have to bring it up to today's standard, am I correct?
That's what my estimate is here. However, that's a windshield estimate. So normally, we, in this situation, we might want to take a closer look in terms of test pitting,
Yes.
because back then it was 2 inches of pavement. Well, now the pavement's all broken up. That's going to get reclaimed anyways. To make sure we got a good base. It does look like it's a pretty decent road. There is some failure there, but overall, it looks.
Well, we're going to need to verify that. That's my thing. My other thing is Ferber Lane a town road or is that a private road? And if it's a private road, then we've got an issue of coming up with on part of a private road going in and whether we're going to leave that dirt Ferber Lane. So we're going to have to.
It's technically all private now. Ferber has people who live on Ferber Lane. That continues, Ferber continues, right?
Right, but you're going to only then make part of Ferber Lane a town road. That's what you're saying.
That's what the request is.
Okay.
We need to think about that, and we need to figure out, again, because the people who live on Ferber Lane, would they be paying a betterment because they're getting a section of their road paved? Or, that's another confusing question.
As I recall, that's a pretty poor, gets dipped and you come down to the corner, you're going to have to come out of dirt onto a pavement. I think that's going to cause some issues just from when I've driven there before. Okay, in terms of manpower, I think you're right. We need to have a discussion about whether we put manpower hours into a warrant article and how we would do that. And are you also talking about getting a consultant in here to put this figure together?
Well, I think it might be better. I think that we should possibly do a little bit, and again, I think in the past, and Becky, one of the first things she told me, she said, you're going to learn to say no, Dave. You've been saying yes too many times. And I think this is a good example of where I'm trying to help keep the cost down by using my time, but then, there's only so many, and then, like I say, we're juggling so many projects now. So I think it would be behoove to get back and set a nice policy of how we do it, and then going forward, that whether we say, okay, we need a year to get an engineer, a study, survey, wetlands mapping, and all those things, and get things done. And then the idea of they pay the full cost, which would be having a bid spec put together and bid out. Now it's going to raise the cost significantly, but that would then keep it simpler than trying to track our time and offset. And then also, we have our own backlog of projects that we've been doing. So this is adding to already full schedule. So. That's why I'm a little bit concerned. Again, I did talk to these people, kind of, said this is the process, but I think now as a board we might want to slow the process down and then have some good discussion and maybe develop a policy, and then maybe it'd be instead of it being a 1-year process, it might be a 2-year process. So someone's got to front up the engineering first to figure out for sure some of the questions that I can't answer by just doing a windshield survey. And I also see there are some surveying issues here too, because with the roads laid out and the road is not built exactly in the right-of-way, so we got an issue there, so we got to look at right-of-way.
If it's not in the right-of-way, it really isn't built to town specs, because if you put a plan, or maybe it isn't specs word, if in a subdivision you say the road is going in one place and you move it over, then there isn't the right-of-way. That's what you're saying.
It appears, as I'm looking at the map now, when you see where Ronald Road comes into Haiti Lane, it looks like there's a funny right-of-way there. And it looks like, again, these maps these are from our GIS maps. So it's another area that probably needs to be looked at, the right-of-way. So that, again, complicates the issue a little more.
I think I would like to have all that. And I wonder whether we aren't at the time, with the amount that your department has, that we get a consultant and we put it out to bid. I don't know how you can coming up with an estimated cost for your workmen to be added to this project. Because then you've already got it in the budget, and, I just don't see it myself if somebody's smart enough to come up with some formula that we...
Well, it's a matter of the math. You just figure out all the overhead expenses and
yeah, but you've already budgeted for those people, their salaries.
Oh, yeah, we can't do it. That's what I'm saying. We've got to stop. I think this year what we're seeing is the project is the extra project we took on with the road was not well scheduled by myself. I made a mistake last year. We took on too much projects, so now we're backlogged. We had a late start because we had to wait for the wetland permits to come in before we could do the work. So it's a complicated, been a complicated year. So that's what I'm thinking. We before we jump into another one, and this one would be again lengthwise bigger than any of the ones we've done so far.
I'm going to start here with Dave Bowers, and then I'll run down here and have the board. Do you have any questions, Dave?
Well, I do think, as it said, is there any way that you can, because your plate is so full, you can have XYZ contractors in Manchester do this for the housing development, or is it something you have to do?
There's two processes. One is to come up with the cost estimate to design, permit, and build the road.
No, but
so you're talking about an engineer to come in, or you're talking about a construction company?
No, but if you come up with, we also have the Winnipesaukee Drive, which is sort of on ice at the moment. We have this. I mean, if you're given 3 betterment projects, and can you handle that, or you can sign someone out to like Brooks or somebody?
I think we're mixing things up. So the question is, I'm saying no, we can't handle any more additional work. So that's an issue for construction. I'm saying is, to the point now is we're going to need to get some people in, and I think we need to develop a policy, because we started doing easy roads and it was kind of small, and I was able to get them done quickly and cheaply. This one here is going to be more complicated because of some of the issues we've discussed. And so, Dave, I think the answer is eventually yes. I think we have to go that route to use a consultant and bid it out. So
And also from everything I read, if something is projected to cost $3 million and the voters vote on it next January, it's going to cost 3.5 because we're undergoing inflation.
Well,
So
as you see, in my estimate, we have escalation or contingency, so I don't think we've had that big a problem with projects. Because normally we do put that, even on a bridge project now, we're escalating it. So, you know, those are things you have to plan on, and that is a problem. But the biggest problem now is everyone's busy, so you can't even find. Try to get 3 prices on small things is very difficult. We're bidding jobs now, and everyone is very busy. So we've actually designed, hold on to contractors. I've been working with local contractors on some design build to keep them here, so we have someone to actually do the work. It's a real strong economy now, and it's not easy to get contractors.
That's what I was
here.
saying. You know, you do a wonderful job, and like Stonehenge or whatever it is down there. And you know, this is a little bit different economy then than it is now. So, but whatever you do is fine with me. You know, once I hear what it is, the past has been excellent.
Brad?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Dave, I think you brought up a lot of good points here. I mean, obviously, all these new betterment roads coming in, you're adding more work load onto your highway department already. You know, it's being recognized that it's going to take more time on the winter maintenance, especially to get the trucks around on it. You're going to have to add more staff on for that, another vehicle and stuff there. And I think too, on these betterment projects, I know you guys like to do a lot of the drainage work, stuff like that on the town roads that we're doing, which I think is great. Like on, you did Trotting Track Road, you're up on Keewaydon Road now, and you still got North Wolfeboro Road, stuff like that to do. I really think the betterment projects, I think you're right, I think we need to come up with a policy on these and kind of separate these out, because this is something that shouldn't be on the taxpayers to support it all by doing any of the work with our own crews and stuff like that. I think, you know, I think it's great you go out and you maybe do the initial estimate like you did here, give them a ballpark, you know, that you guys are looking at doing, you know, add the $1,600 a year on your taxes to pay for it over 10 years. Gives them a pretty good idea, so if they want to sign up for it or not, they can make that decision. And if they do, then we move forward. I think the way to do it, like you said, is go out with a consultant, do what we need to, do the layout and everything there, make sure it's all done right, and bid the whole thing out and have it all fall on the, you know, the owners in the betterment process there. This is kind of my opinion of it, so.
Dave?
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat what they said, but the one thing I see that with these betterment ones that we've been doing, they've been very short. You know.
Yeah, much week of work.
But the thing that I find is that you brought up the point, which I think all of us have talked about at some point, is we lose track of the labor value. In other words, our guys, yes, we're already paying for them. You know, they need to work someplace, they need to be doing something. But I think we're also starting to lose track in some areas, some of the maintenance on some of our other subdivision roads that we own, or that we've taken over. You know, from ditching to trimming trees back, to all of those things that aren't getting done when our labor is being utilized, even on Trotting Track or Hayden Road. That's where I'm coming from. I mean, I understand it does cost us less, it does cost materials, but other things aren't getting done, and that's what I hear.
No, I think it's a
You
good
won't
point.
hear some of it, and I'm sure you may, but we get a lot of that.
Yep.
How
No,
come,
I think it's
my ditches haven't been done for 2 years? You know, and it's a reasonable thing for people to ask.
Oh, no, we've got
You know.
to keep up with the stuff, no?
Yeah, but I mean, this is a pretty good-sized project here.
Paul?
Yeah, a couple of things. So Dave, thanks for doing this. In no particular order, I just took notes as you were speaking. In the present tense, there is just a ton of projects on your plate, a lot of variables, a lot of date changes, some, you know, that you can't control. That stuff just happens. Tight labor market, you're having trouble getting bids on things, lots of flux. So, you know, my head says clear the backlog, and, you know, that's kind of where I come on that. You talked about the amount of roads that are out there that could be eligible, and I don't know whether every road out there that has a P on it is eligible, but there might be a policy conversation that you were, I think, talking about, you know, what makes a road eligible, what's the process you go through. So, you know, that kind of, I wrote that down. I'm kind of with my colleagues on impact. Every time we do this, we're just, you know, we're bumping up operating expense, and, you know, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is not the conversation, but it's an impact on costs. It's also an impact on service. You know, you're keeping up. You've said that a lot. I'm just keeping up, and I think we need to have, or you need to have with you know, with Becky et al. the how do we not keep up and just make this what we want it to be? And that may mean that we take some things like this betterment project, 3,600 feet off the, you know, maybe you take 3/4 of a mile of net new stuff off the plate for a bit until we sort out all those other things.
Right, that's
You know, you're just throwing chestnuts on the fire, and I know you want to do that. And some of your cooking chestnuts. I know you want to, you know, you're keen to wanting to do that. We're all keen to wanting to do that, but I think the greater impact is what we have to kind of sort out. Thank you.
I have a question for Matt. Does our ordinance require us to take them if, you know, a certain number requests? And if so, and then I'll make my comment if so.
So it's a great question. I was hoping you'd ask. So many communities in New Hampshire, they not only require subdivisions, and we're talking about a lot of 1980s subdivisions here, they not only require subdivisions to be built to a town standard, they actually have an implied expectation in their ordinance that the town will take the subdivision road immediately after the fact. The reality is that Wolfeboro did not do that at the time, and as a result, what we're seeing a lot of these subdivision roads that probably should have been taken by the town at the time when they were built to the town standard, now coming back to us at a point where their condition has degraded. So because we were not proactive at that time in taking those roads, I think we're faced with a situation now where, as Dave alluded to, we have many subdivisions, Winnipesaukee Estates, this subdivision here, in addition to others, that may face this condition and will likely come before the board in the near future. Again, I think Wolfeboro was not as proactive in writing that policy into their ordinance at the time. The policy does not exist now. There's no expectation for private subdivision roads that are built to town standard that the town take them, and I think that's a potential problem for us.
And we have no requirement that we have to take them.
No.
That was what I was trying to.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Do you know if there ever was a homeowners association set up or a road owners association set up in this subdivision?
I don't know the answer to that. There was.
There was not.
It was not.
No.
And it was
So-
not a requirement of the planning board?
The way these normally worked was the developer, once he got the approval, He might have some covenants, but he was the sole source. So he starts selling lots, building lots, and once he makes his money, he's gone. And then sometimes some of the subdivisions have organizations, some have very loosely, we put you in to plow, some they fight over it, some people plow the roads and other people don't. So it's a lot of mixed. This one here is mixed. They don't have a formal association. Some of the neighbors got together, held a meeting, and so they don't have any money or anything. So they were looking for me for guidance, and I tried to help them a little bit, but then I started thinking, wait a second, we got to think about the town and the bigger picture. So I think the direction we're talking about is to develop a policy. Let's tell them that, thank you, but this is a big project, we have to put it on hold. Take the time to have a policy come back about what Matt was saying is, what are the rules for taking it over? And
Right.
then
That's
maybe,
what I want to know.
because it used to be a density. You have to have so many houses built per
Yes.
linear feet of road, and that's where the need comes. So I think that's what the RSAs talk about is, what is
Occasion.
the occasion to lay out the road. Right?
Yeah.
So that's what we get back to that. So I think it'd be wise maybe say we'll put this on hold, see if we can move quickly on the policy, and then get back to them and figure out how we can do this in terms of without the burden falling on staff here, so that we try to get it to an outside consultant and having them do the work.
And that outside consultant. So in reality, when the town approved these subdivisions, we put the liability, a future of having to take over these roads, and that expense added on to the budget. Or we deny any, if you do one or two, it seems like you have a hard time denying 3 and 4 once we start taking
Well,
them.
set some rules.
Huh?
Set up some rules.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I think I have somebody in the audience who may live there who had her hand up, and why don't you come on up again, state your name, and kind of tell us what your concerns are.
So I am Fern Carey. I live on Ronald Road. I am one of the few homeowners that initiated this. I moved in this past October, and the week we moved in, we got,
You can just hold it if you want.
a bill for plowing, which of course was fine. The problem we have is that the neighborhood is not 100% all paying for the plowing. We have people who will refuse to pay their portion, and so it's coming back on the rest of us. There's only 24 lots on all of these roads. I know he mentioned there were 2 vacant lots. One is used as an access to the pond, and the other one is currently being built on, so that will leave just the 1 vacant lot. Ferber Road, that section that he's talking about taking over, that's already paved, and that is currently a bus stop for the town. That corner there, which is it's a very dangerous corner because it is privately maintained, that there have been actually a number of slide outs from different people in the neighborhood. Let's see. So there is no association in place, which means there are no monthly fees, and there is no reserve. So there is nothing for us to work with. So we were looking at it saying, well, what are we going to do from here? There's a lot of work that has to be done. The dishes have to be done. The culverts are way undersized for what they need to be. There's a water problem, a drainage problem off of everybody's property. There's places where the pavement is crumbling. There's places where rocks are coming up. And 2 of our police officers in town live on our road. Officer Llewellyn, and I'm sorry I don't know the name of the other one. I guess that's it. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'm gathering from our conversation here, we're going to send this to Becky and to staff to draft out a policy for us, and that when we get that done, we will meet on this again. Is that an agreement of everybody's?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave.
Move forward on that. Next item on the agenda is chemical treatment for milfoil on September 12th. Oh, here comes Kathy. She texted me, and I didn't think I was going to have a date. Come tell me.
Okay, Kathy Barnard from the Milfoil Committee. The chemical treatment will be done next Wednesday, the 12th.
Okay.
They'll be here at 9:30.
9:30,
And abutters notices have been sent.
Okay.
And the signs will go up as soon as they arrive.
Right.
We don't have those yet.
And you need approval from the board to shut down the dam, am I correct?
Yes.
We need approval to do that. And we need to notice that Back Bay is being chemically treated on that day.
Yes.
And so are the committee going to put something on the bridge, or are we just going to put?
That's what we talked about, was putting some signs on the bridge to discourage voters from going in that day.
Okay.
To Back
And
Bay.
this year, we are using a new chemical, and you want to tell them about that? Since you're here, I'm going to give it all to you.
Yes, but I don't have any...
Procellucor
Right.
is the new chemical?
Yes.
Instead of Navigate, and this is going to be a liquid?
Yes.
Opposed to a pedal?
Right.
pellet.
And if it's not as effective as they're claiming that it will be, we'll get a reduced cost to do another chemical treatment next year.
Next year. And this being a liquid, we're hoping that it gets down to the roots faster than the pellet
Right.
that had to open up. Anything else I need to?
No,
Okay.
this is just a go.
I'd like to make a motion that the board approve the shutting of the Crescent Lake Dam on September 11th and have it reopen on September 13th.
Second.
Okay. Further discussion, I've already talked to Adam. Adam has been letting water out at this time in order for us to shut that dam down and not have it go over the dam if we had a big rain. So we're hoping that that will help us because we don't want any kind of occurrence. So he has been letting it out.
Just a point of information, if
Yep.
I could. So is it just being off for, the dam being off for a day and a half or 2 full days? Is that adequate for this treatment to
Yes.
do its thing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You know, and if we can open it earlier on the 13th, this is also the year they're drawing down Lake Wentworth. So that was supposed to start on the 10th, so he started a little bit earlier, just in case we had a heavy rain on that. Okay, all those in, yep.
Just want to make a comment about the drawdown, so make sure everyone's aware that the lake will be coming down. We'll wait until after the Friday, we'll start drawing down. But anyone who's in shallow water needs to get their boat out by the weekend, or they're going to be in trouble because the following week it'll be coming down. It'll be down by the 10th. Most people know, but there are new people who just bought in the last 4 years.
And you're right, with Adam already has taken some out, so people should already notice that Wentworth is going down. Yep. Good point. Anybody at home who didn't know. So, any further discussion on the shutting of the dam? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All righty. And I'll make a motion that the board approves putting a sign on the bridge saying that Back Bay is being chemically treated. Do I have a second to that?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that should take care of that. And we're hoping that this will really, they say that this is far more effective than Navigate, and we're hoping that it does a great job because we've had milfoil problems down there this year.
A lot.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is old business. Does anybody have any old business? I do. We need to assign food for our different budget meetings. So think about what day you would like to cook. And here are the ones. We need somebody for October 9th, October 10th, and October 11th, October 15th, and October 18th. And we may need, we have one date which we may, and the 24th. And I'm not going to assign somebody yet for the
Madam Chairman,
25th.
as a newcomer here, what is this all about?
We expect you to cook a gourmet dinner for us, whatever night you have it. We all do
big
quite
dinner?
a bit of cooking. Oh, yes.
I like
What
lobster.
do I have to cook for? How many people do I cook for?
Okay, wait a second.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Cook for 7?
I'm going to just,
All right.
we'll do the 6 of us, and then we'll have to draw straws for who gets a second run. Let's take our first one, but Paul, I want a good dinner. Okay.
Yeah.
Dave Bowers, do you want the 9th or the 10th of October?
October 9th.
Okay, that's Dave is going to give us the start. Does anybody want the 10th?
Put me in.
Okay, Paul's going to do the 10th.
I have no idea what I'm...
The 11th, I'll do the 11th. Okay, 15th.
Day of the week is that?
15th?
Yep.
I'll do that one.
Okay, Dave Senecal. And the 18th,
I'll do that one.
Brad. Becky, I guess you get the 24th.
Okay.
That'll be Becky.
It'll be a Deb and Becky show.
We'll save the best till last.
Right. Gourmet dinner, that's what we want. You can just have it catered for us.
Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Now, that's it. All right, that took care of that.
And which one did Linda get?
I have the 11th.
11th.
I have the 10th, right?
My choices will be less. I'll have to see who does on Tuesday and Wednesday, and I'll have to do some other kind of cooking at the stores.
Thursday's not good for me.
Yeah, we can send it. We can add, maybe you could add to your list, put the name of the food person.
Yes, I can do that, absolutely.
And resend it to us, then we'll all know. Any other questions on that? Becky also sent us out when she has been meeting with staff, and we also received the dates and times for the budget committee and what they're going to be looking at, so we can all keep up to date on that.
If you want to take one and then pass them along.
Okay. Yep. I'll let you do that. You got old business.
So yes, I will add
What day
the
is Employee Appreciation Day?
It's Friday,
14th.
the 14th.
Employee Appreciation Day is the 14th of September, when essentially the town offices are closed except for the essential departments that relay. So don't plan to renew your licenses on that day.
Okay, is there,
Do we have a schedule for that yet?
I don't think we've got dates. Have we gotten the time?
We do not have one yet. I requested both the purchase order and a schedule today.
Okay. So you'll send that out to us as soon as you get it?
Yes.
We don't have it, and you'll put that on the town website to notify the public?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Other business?
I have one, Madam Chairman.
Yes?
I have a fondness in my heart for the planning board, having been on the planning board, and I'm your alternate. I'd like to, Becky, I'd like to just get copies of invitations and meeting minutes so that I can attend either as Selectman Murray's alternate or as a citizen.
Okay.
Thank you.
In our packets, there are 2 accommodations. Are you doing that under town manager's report?
No, I wasn't expecting to.
Do anything? They were in my packet. There's nothing on the agenda, and I didn't know what.
Typically, there's a separate folder for things to be signed, but I noticed that that's not here tonight, and one of those needs a correction, so I would defer.
I will just table them.
Thank you.
They weren't on the agenda. They were just in my packet.
Madam Chairman, if I could, it's for the CIP, if I didn't mention that, Becky, get minutes and invitations for the CIP committee. Thank you.
Okay. Any other old or other business? We're ready to move on. I will start down with Paul, and we'll do committee reports.
Okay, I had all of that in my agenda someplace. So I've been busy. We'll try to go backwards. Last week, I think it was, we had a master plan midterm session here. And the Energy Committee was one of the sessions which I chair. I've also I've been meeting with the Energy Subcommittee on the master plan to get our goals and our purpose statement done. I had the good fortune of meeting with the chairman and some members of the chamber to have a conversation, an initial conversation about the ongoing situation at our train station and what we should be thinking about doing there because we now have a long-term vacancy going on there. And I've just had just various conversations with citizens about different things, most specifically relating to budget and projects, and I've kind of passed those along to our town manager as they've come my way. That's it.
Dave?
Yeah, I've been involved in negotiations with the 2 unions. We've had some very good meetings. We've had 2 with each of the unions recently, and that's the only things I've been doing.
Brad?
Yeah, let's see. Last night we had a planning board meeting. We had 6 public hearings scheduled, one of which pulled out at the end, and I was hoping Kathy would still be here because I wanted to commend her at still getting us out at 9 o'clock after 2 hours, having that many public hearings. So
Very good.
it was greatly appreciated by the planning board. We had a Wolfeboro Community TV meeting, and we didn't have a quorum, so we just sat there. We had discussions on what was going on and stuff, more informational than anything. As Paul mentioned, we had the Master Plan Forum back on the 21st. It was very well attended by the townspeople and all the committees, subcommittees. And we also had a Friends of Libby Museum meeting, and the same night we had the Tuftonboro Planning Board meeting that some of us went to.
Yeah, and I'll go and do the Tuftonboro Planning. Paul was there, Dave was there, Brad was there, and I was there, and all of it took about 10 minutes, and nobody said anything, but we were all there, right? I also attended that Master Plan Forum, and I agree that it was very well attended, and I was pleased to see that. The EDC met, and they had some discussion about the economic development chapter of the master plan before the meeting, before the forum. I did a CIP meeting today, and we heard from the fire department on their equipment requests. Today, the restroom committee met and talked about the need for expansion of the restrooms down at the train station, and they felt that those restrooms did need to be expanded, and their recommendations will go over to the ad hoc railroad committee meeting that Paul and I were at. I would like to inform the public that the space at the railroad station where the nursery school is going to be the space where the chamber tomorrow morning at 7:30 is going to have its quarterly meeting to have a chance to really look at that facility. We have also looked at, and I know that the CIP committee would like to meet and plans to meet in that space over the next month or so. And so as the library shuts down, that space will be opened up, since we're going to pay for the heat and everything for it anyhow, and use it until we come up with the design. But it seemed non-productive to leave it vacant and hunt for meetings when we had a space that was already there. So I just want to get a okay from the board for us to move forward with that. Does anybody have an issue with the nursery school section of the train station being used for meetings while the library is shut down? Anybody have an issue? I have general consensus that that's okay?
It makes sense.
Great idea.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. It would have been a little hard if that was not the case. Okay, Dave Bowers.
No committee meetings, but I've been continuing going over all the roads personally, taking pictures and looking up their history, and hope to update a gazetteer, so if somebody wants to find out when Junebug Road was done, I'll be able to tell when it opened and everything else. This involves looking in the Granite State News and then going out and visiting the places, and a very enjoyable project, and I'll turn it over to the town when I'm done.
What a great historian we have here. We'll have the history of just about everything, won't we?
We have it already.
Yeah, you're going to put it together in a place for us. Well, thank you for doing that, Dave. Town manager.
I'd just like to second what Selectman Senecal said. We've had very productive union meetings with both groups, and a lot of people coming to the table and working diligently on getting our contracts renewed this year amicably. And so that's been time consuming, and putting together budget schedules also time consuming. So I did enjoy the Labor Day weekend at the Lancaster Fair, being a farm girl and having had stocks in our family since the 1800s. So I did take one day off. And I delivered some fence.
Yes, good for you. And you'll put a report for the month up on the website at some point in this month? Okay. Questions from the press? No questions from the press. Public input? No public input. Can I have a motion to go into non-public? Do I have a second?
Second.
Aye.
Yes.
All those in favor? Yep,
Yes.
we're non-public.
No, I guess.